All right, hey everyone, welcome to One Daily Thought number 11. As you can see, I'm now wearing a different shirt. If you're watching this in order, so you know it's a different day. Um, but wanted to go through and cover, again, today's topic, which is why current events are a waste of your time. For anyone who's followed this so far, you can see that I've obviously steered clear of probably at least 4 or 5 hot button topics that have, popped up in the news over the last several days. I think probably most notably would be the horrific shooting at the mosque in New Zealand. I think obviously we could talk about how horrible that is, and there are real implications that come out of that. And you're seeing that in terms of how New Zealand's passing certain laws, and obviously with the responses to that, and these issues do present real trade-offs. I mean, in this case, obviously it touches on gun control, touches on religious freedom. New Zealand's reaction to it touches on freedom of speech. So a lot of core topics, but the reality is that in any situation like this, we're just going to be way too swayed by both tribal loyalties as well as emotions to really make too much intellectual progress on the issues at hand. And you may disagree with this. I'm sure some folks might, but yeah, I would encourage you, if that's the case, to look at an alternative situation. Let's say, the Iraq War, and it's pretty clear to see that emotionally charged policy then has a high propensity to lead to bad policy. And again, you could, I think, point to a lot of other issues or cases where that's the case, but just generally, I don't think it's at all controversial to say, or shouldn't be, that policy is best made when you are relatively dispassionate, because any policy that's touching anything meaningful is going to have some negative consequences and ideally more positive consequences. So if emotions are getting in the way, you're going to be much more likely to overweight one or the other and not make an actual measurement of the trade-offs or benefits of each. But in any case, that's kind of touching on events that are actually newsworthy. But beyond that, there's actually a ton of topics that really just aren't that important. I think the anecdote that I like to keep in mind with this, and heard it from a friend, and I'm sure it has come from other places as well. But if you think about it like this, newspapers always need a front page. They always need a headline. And 24-hour news channels obviously always also need something to talk about. And as we kind of know intuitively, and this has also been brought up and is not anything new at all, but each of those platforms makes more money based on having more people, more eyeballs on it. And so, if you look at the incentives, basically, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that these topics often are not actually that meaningful, but are made to appear as though they are more meaningful. So, but stated generally, I think that claim that I would make, and this kind of combines both pieces of that, is that you don't build a cohesive worldview by focusing on event after event. And the reality is you're just going to lead to, because of all of the different nuances that go into any given event, and the aspect of jumping from event to event, trying to judge based often on emotions and tribal loyalties, you're going to get an incomplete and incoherent set of principles. And any set of principles that is incoherent and incomplete is much too easy to invert or corrupt or just kind of go astray, because you don't have an underlying foundation that basically sturdies the building and says, okay, well, I know I believe this. And so, this relates back to first principle thinking, but if you believe some set of general concepts X and apply those to situations Y, it's much easier to get to a sort of coherent worldview than if you're always evaluating based on Y and then trying to fill in X. Again, this is not my idea, as most things here. They are just ideas that I've found really helpful and valuable. And in this case, I think you can look to a lot of people who I would consider today's clearest thinkers. I'll throw out the examples of Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Eric Weinstein, many others though. All of them can provide really well thought out, well articulated, and just generally really well communicated ideas to an incredible variety of questions. They don't need to just be an expert on topic X or topic Y. They can cover a whole span of topics. And the reason they can do this, I mean, they've been asked this and basically gave answer more condensed than what I'm describing here. But so they've done this by talking and thinking about ideas, not actual events. And again, using that concept of first principles thinking to build up from a foundation rather than frantically jumping around from event A to B to C and trying to derive principles from that. So encourage you as well to do the same. And if you're watching a lot of news, you can probably stop doing that. I mean, obviously you want to stay in touch, but with what's going on, but don't need to do too much of it. So that's all for today, and see you tomorrow.